Hello and welcome to episode 38 of the Sandeman Street Podcast, a podcast about Dundee and Dundee United from fans of both clubs. I'm Andrew and as usual I'm joined by my regular co-host Jack. Jack, how are you today?
Good mate, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad mate. You'll be absolutely brilliant after your weekend's result.
Great result.
Just before we get into that, social media time. On Twitter, we are at SandemanStPod, at SandemanStPod. On Instagram, we are at the Sandeman Street Pod, and on YouTube, we are at the Sandeman Street Podcast. So, if you could check us out on there, give us a follow or a subscribe or whatever it is. We are also available in the comments. If you want to drop us a community question, feel free, and me and Jack will try our best to answer that. Anything on Dundee or Dundee United, we'll try our best to answer your questions. So, Jack, we touched on it just there. United doing the Tannadice double over Celtic this season. You must be absolutely delighted about that.
Of course, it's always going to be good to get a double win against one of the old firm. Celtic, I don't think we're really up for it, or up to it, should I say, on Sunday. They were pretty lacklustre throughout the pitch. I think the pitch helped us in that situation. I think it being like a potato field definitely helped. They weren't able to play on the deck like they probably wanted, and we were able to take advantage of it. I thought United were very much deserving winners. We made it difficult for them. We were a lot more offensive and physical with them, I feel like. Some individual players were exceptional. Special shout-outs to Aguirre. I thought Yovo was pretty good, as well as Ferry as well. Yeah, great result. And that makes it, I think, 1 defeat and 5 against Old Firm this season. So, credit where credit's due for Jim Goodwin. Obviously, he's got his haters at the moment. But you can't complain with that record, despite the Old Firm's obvious lacklusterness this season.
You yourself being one of those haters, may I add.
Yeah, I know.
You obviously, if you were to take that record into all the other teams in the league, you'd be right up there challenging for the top 6, probably challenging for Europe with Motherwell and Hibs.
Yeah, probably.
It's quite a remarkable season all around, not just with that stat on United, but just in general. Like, so many different subplots going on in the SPL this season. It's been some season.
Yeah, it's definitely one for the books, I think. I don't think many people would have expected it to pan out the way it has, and it's nice to see it a bit more competitive than normal, definitely.
Absolutely, and obviously we'll touch on Dundee later on with their game at Tynecastle. Celtic were needing the win after their title rivals had won on Saturday. I mean, I'm not saying this to take any credit away from United, because United had a role in Celtic's display with making it hard for them, but Celtic really, really were poor. And I've seen a lot of people were taking the piss out of McCowan after his comments a few weeks ago when he said if they played to the best of their ability, nobody can touch them. And he's getting a bit of a slagging off just now online, isn't he?
Yeah, I did see that, yeah. I've seen people saying that he basically just got signed because they needed the homegrown players for Europe, and he counted as one of them. Otherwise, he would never have got the move. So, yeah, it's a bit rich coming from him. He did have a good 6 months to a year at Dundee, but it came back to bite him in the backside, I think.
Well, he's a Dundee level player, really, isn't he?
Yeah. He's never going to play regularly for Celtic.
What annoys me about it is that this is what happens when boys like him go away to Celtic or Rangers from a club like us, is that they'll go away to Celtic or Rangers, they'll be a bit part, and then they'll end up at a team like Aberdeen or a Hearts or a Hibs, who, yeah, are a bigger club than Dundee. I'm not going to argue that at all. But obviously this season aside, with Hearts doing very well, you expect your team to compete more with them as opposed to Rangers and Celtic. I'm not saying that I'm expecting Dundee to finish above Celtic, finish above Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen. On a good season for us and a bad season for them, it could happen. A couple of years ago, Dundee finished above both Aberdeen and Hibs, so you can compete more with them. But I think my main gripe is that what will probably happen is McCowan will end up at a Hibs, and it'll strengthen them because he's probably more than capable of playing for them. I would say. But anyway, back to United, because this isn't anything about Luke McCowan. As you did touched on, there were some very, very good individual performances, which doesn't take away from the fact that it was a very good team performance. I did sit and watch bits and pieces of it. I was kind of flipping in between that and the Sunderland-Newcastle game, and I thought, as you rightly said, the boy Agee was excellent in the middle of the park. I think he maybe does need a haircut, but he was excellent yesterday. He's been a good January transfer find, which is unusual because you don't usually pick up January transfer finds. The boy, is it Ferrugia? I thought he was pretty good yesterday. As you said, Yovu Ferry, Stevenson, I thought he was good yesterday, especially when you take into consideration that he was booked very early in the match.
Yeah.
So credit to him. What about you? Is there anybody else that caught your eye?
I think Savelle, he's obviously a player that he's been playing at the back quite a bit recently for us, and that's where we signed him as, but he's definitely a better player in the middle of the pitch for us. He just brings a bit more, he's got a bit more of a game when he plays in the middle of the pitch, and I don't think it's any coincidence that in the last couple of games against Celtic and Dundee, albeit we did throw away the lead against Dundee, they've probably been two of our most comfortable performances in the league this season, and it's with Savelle in the middle, so I've got to give him a shout out as well. But yeah, as you said, all in all, I think the whole team done really well. Maynard Brewer got away with one, with him spilling the ball from a shot.
How lucky was the bounce as well?
Very lucky.
When it's your day, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, all in all, I can't fault really any of the players for the performance.
No, and I think obviously when, like I said this a few weeks ago with McCracken, with Dundee side of things, when he's having a bad game, I've called it out, and I've probably said that quite a lot on here this season. When he had his good days, you've got to give him credit for that, and I think you've probably got to do the same for Jim Goodwin. He's certainly in the past 2 weeks, the performances have improved. Now, obviously, the derby fell apart in injury time, but the scars could have been there from that on Sunday yesterday. But no, they set the scene out the game pretty comfortably, didn't they? Yeah,
they did. Yeah, like you say, you've got to give him credit where credit's due. He set us up right in both games, and we've played well. I think we need to see how he gets on for the remainder of the season. There's still an outside chance of getting top 6, despite how slim it is. There is a chance there. We've got to get wins in our next 2 games, and we hope Falkirk lose both theirs. If we do that, we've got a really good chance of being top 6. Obviously, it's easier said than done. But yeah, if the performances start to improve the way they have improved over the last couple of games, and he makes it to the end of the season, and you could see there's an improvement there, constantly, consistently, an improvement, I think you can. Obviously, there's a big thing just now about whether he deserves to be in charge for next season, but if you can see that the system's starting to click and the players are finally getting on board and the tactics are working and we're becoming more dominant in games, then the question's got to be there of keeping him for next season.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly in the past two games they have been a lot better. What would you say to if I was to say United are safe now, and then obviously you are going that they've still got an outside chance of the top 6, going to be difficult with the fixtures that you have. Obviously you've got Rangers Ibrox, Livingston at Tannadice is a far more favourable game. But would you say that that's United probably safe now?
I think it would take a calamitous series of events for us to get relegated. I think it's something like if we lose every game going forward, we need Kelly would have to win 3 games and draw. Dundee would have to win 3 games. Like basically every team would have to win 3 games, and it is possible, but it's very slim chance of that obviously happening. I think if United win 1 game, then it goes up to Kelly have to win 5 games or something. So there is obviously a chance there, but I think mathematically there's a chance. Realistically, I think we're probably safe.
Yeah, it's obviously made it a lot tighter with St Mirren and Kelly both winning at the weekend, but I think that United win puts them too far ahead, and especially see if it was only United were the only team above St Mirren and Kilmarnock, then it's a wee bit different. But you've obviously got ourselves, you've got Aberdeen in there as well, so a lot of teams have to not pick up points, or pick up points should I say, and a lot of teams have to, and a lot of scenarios have to go wrong for United as well. So I think that was a big win for easing any outside pressure that was on United in terms of the relegation playoff, because Livingston are never going to catch anyone, are they?
No, I think they're high and dry, so they say. I think Livy's season's probably done, unless they pick up an amazing form of fixtures and run and get wins and get a series of wins. There's obviously a chance then they stay up, but I don't see it happening for them. As for Kelly and that, obviously they've got a chance to pick up a good result at the weekend, and they seem to be capable of getting the odd result now and then. But I think, like you say, I think the chances of United getting relegated now are pretty slim.
Yeah, I kind of see it, and obviously it's a good thing for the city, because we're wanting to have either the derbies, the two teams in the Premiership. I think I seen a good tweet or something on a podcast or something where summed it up perfectly for a lot of people, who said that if as a Dundee or a Dundee United fan, you want your team to be doing really well, and you want the other team to be struggling enough where they're right down at the bottom of the Premiership, but they're just not quite rubbish enough to get relegated. I think a lot of people might disagree with that and think that they want the other team to be in the Highland League. But as much as we all dread the derbies for nerves and being anxious about losing to a team that your mate supports, the days out are great, and they're great for the city, and it's one of the only games nowadays that you can sell out either ground, and it's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. The derbies are basically what makes the season. That's the thing that people look forward to every season. So, yes, you want your rivals to suffer and have a poor season, but I do feel like that's part of the lore of the city of Dundee, so to speak, is that people love to look forward to the derby and be able to go for drinks before the game with your Dundee supporting mates, or vice versa. Go to the game, shoot abuse for 90 minutes, then go out afterwards and get pushed with your mates again. So, yeah, it's something that is special, and it's obviously you don't want you kind of want your rivals to get relegated, but at the same time you're not disappointed if they don't.
Yeah. I think most Dundee United fans will probably agree with that. But is there any last words on the game yesterday you'd like to mention? Obviously, one victory over Celtic in a season's good, but I mean 2. And with them coming to Dens in a couple of weeks, it could be a case that they've come to the city of Dundee 4 times in a season and not picked up a point.
It must be the first time in history if that happens.
Well, I think it's the first time since 1987 or 88 that they've lost 3 times in Dundee, and that was twice at Tannadice, once at Dens, and it's the first time since 1991 that they've lost twice at Tannadice in a season.
That's the first time since 1990, 1991 that United have won by more than 1 goal against Celtic.
That's wild.
But yeah, I've not got anything else to add apart from that, so yeah.
Okay, well, we'll move on to Dundee's defeat at Tynecastle, which on reflection, isn't the worst result in the world, but with Cully and St Mirren both winning, it isn't exactly ideal. Obviously, you're not expecting to get too much from Tynecastle with the form the Hearts have been in this season. What have you seen of the match, Jack? Obviously, pretty much just the highlights, I would assume, but anything that you've heard around the match at all?
Honestly, I've just seen the highlights, and looking at the highlights, Dundee didn't seem up to much at all. I don't think there was maybe a single shot in the entire highlights package I've seen. Obviously, with the SPFL YouTube channel, they do cut out quite a lot and they only show the main chances, but I'm almost convinced I've never seen a single Dundee chance. So, I've not really much to add to it. I think it was... I've seen obviously the red card, and it probably is a red card. The first foul was definitely a booking. Second one, you can also argue it's a booking, so I don't have any complaints with the red. But outside of that, I don't think Dundee were up to much.
I think I watched the highlights myself, so I think it was the Sky Sports' highlights, and I think they don't give you really a true flavour of the match, which they never really will do, I would imagine, but it was a bit of a nothing game in all honesty. I mean, Hearts had two pretty decent chances in the first half. One, Braga kind of 1-2s and jinxes his way through the defence, and at the end of it doesn't do very well with his shot and puts it wide. And then there was another one where, is his name Kabore? He gets behind the defence and he tried to lob the keeper and got it all wrong, put it into the stand. All in all, the first half was really kind of a battle in the midfield. Dundee had a lot of play through the midfield and into the attacking third, but nothing really to note in terms of glaring opportunities. They had one right at the end of the half where they kind of took a wee bit of a clever free kick. Joe Wesley spun and hit, and to be honest with you, probably should have done better. It was kind of right at the goalie, in all honesty, from edge of the box. That was really their best chance of the half, and in the second half they didn't have very many massive chances as well. Simon Murray put one onto the roof of the net from a cross, and really that was it. But I felt like Dundee held their own pretty much the entire match. I'm pretty sure Hearts' first attempt on target was their goal. They had another one later on where Shanklin spun kind of just inside the box, and it was a fairly comfortable save for McCracken. But other than that, Dundee were back to... They were a lot... You know what, right? So it's interesting. They were far better on Saturday than they were against United, and they got beat. Which obviously has its caveats, because United chucked it as much as Dundee got back into it, and so an ending like that is very, very unusual in football. And Hearts are better than United as well at the moment, so there's another thing you could add. But they played well, they competed for long spells of the match, and you know what I noticed about it, Jack, right? See, before the game, the atmosphere was buzzing, because obviously they've got all the music playing. They had Paulo Sergio out on the pitch before the match, interviewing him. The crowd were right up for it. See, after about 5-10 minutes, bag of jaggies. The crowd were really, really tense. You could just tell that they're coming into this bit of the season now where they're not used to it. They are obviously in a situation that they've not been in for a long, long time, and they weren't getting on their players' backs. I wouldn't go as far as saying that, but the atmosphere was very, very tense, and you could tell. And obviously, once they get their goal and they can relax a bit, the atmosphere kicks off, and it's just a natural thing for crowds to do. But it was very, very nervous from the Hearts perspective, I thought. There was something that I picked up on anyway. Maybe some Hearts fan could tell me otherwise, but that was one thing. One of the other things I wanted to speak to you about was the goal. So try your best to remember exactly what happened. It's just a pure goal to lose, isn't it? It's just that the worst thing about it is that the free kick is so central, and it's just a floated ball into the box. Like, maybe not floated, but kind of put in with little to no pace on it. And the boy makes contact with the ball with the header on the 6-yard line. Now, for me, and it's going to sound like the usual John McCracken hating from me, but for me, your goalie's got to come for that. If a boy's heading it on the 6-yard line, the keeper's got to come and at least punch it. Don't know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, the player does beat the defenders, and he's able to get up higher than, I don't know who was marking the Hearts play.
It was Ethan Hamilton that was marking him, and before I'll get you back in, Ethan Hamilton loses his man and is poor in that aspect as well, which I should have said before I got you in. Ethan Hamilton's lost his man, and he's running around in circles trying to find him, and ultimately the boy beats him to the ball and puts it in the net. I just think that when it's so close to goal, I mean, the goalie starts 2 or 3 yards off his line anyway. You've got to be a bit more commanding, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm being unfair here. A lot of people on the bus on the way home on Saturday were saying that they reckon he should have saved it. Now, I'm a bit less critical about that because it's so close to him and it's coming at a pace that he gets his hand to it and his hand isn't strong enough, but it's point blank. My criticism would be that I reckon he should come and punch it. You know what it reminded me of a wee bit? If you cast your mind back to when Scotland played England at Hampden, when Griffiths scored these 2 free kicks, and their equaliser with Harry Kane was just a floated ball in right at the back post, and Harry Kane put it in with his foot from about 3 yards out. I thought it was not exactly the same, but it was one of the ones where I think the keeper should really at least come for it, at least just to punch it, maybe not to catch it, but at least punch it.
Yeah, I think when it's so close, I think the keeper really should challenge for it, because if the Hearts, let's just take this John McCracken for example, if McCracken comes out and challenges for the ball, he's got just as much chance of winning that ball, or probably more of a chance of winning that ball or making contact with the ball than he does if he stands on his line and waits for the Hearts boy to hit it towards him. I agree with you. I think the keeper's not really expected to save that shot from such close range. Should I say? It's a hard one for a goalie to save when it's point blank. He gets a touch to it, and I think that's probably why Dundee fans were expecting him to save it. But it is a difficult one to save. But yeah, I think when it's coming in so close, a goalie has to challenge for it. But you've also got to take it with a pinch of salt, because if you look at Kucherenko, for example, he was coming for every ball like that, and a lot of times, obviously not all the time, but a few times it happened where he would get there and then he would punch it into the back of his own net. If you're coming for that ball, you've got to come with it with 2 hands. You can't go with that with 1 hand. So yeah, I think McCracken should come for that, but he's got to try and play the most comfortable route of getting that ball rather than standing on the line or running and trying to just punch it with 1 hand.
I think there's also there's 2 things that I'd add to that. One, it's not like a corner where the 6 yard box is loaded with players, and it's difficult for a goalie to come out sometimes because he needs to get through so many bodies to come for it. You can forgive goalies for not coming off the line sometimes to come and catch the ball or whatever, because there's so much traffic there. But this is one where Dundee are holding a defensive line, probably round about the edge of the box, on the edge of the D maybe, and all the players are running towards the goal, but they're all running with kind of like their head over their shoulders, whereas McCracken's seeing everything in front of him. He's looking directly at the ball, and he's coming towards the play instead, and there's no bodies for him. He's coming to meet the ball, and everyone is chasing after the ball essentially. Now, another thing I would say is that, see if he comes for it and catches it or punches it and gets collided by the boy McEntee who scored the goal. 99 times out of 100 he's getting a free kick.
Yeah, true.
Because he's a goalie and the most protected people in the world. If anybody watched Liverpool against Galatasaray last week, they'll know exactly what I mean. The goalie will get the free kick, so he doesn't really even need to come and get clean contact on it. He just needs to come and do something. Just put a hand through the ball and get hit, and you'll get a free kick. So those type of free kicks, I really, when the ball's coming so far towards the goal, I really want my goalie to come and be commanding, come off his line and take the pressure off the defence, because they're seeing everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very, very true.
Anyway, the only other thing I wanted to speak about, and I know that everybody's going to be rolling their eyes when they hear me speaking about this because it's same old with me, but this really got on my nerves. When the fourth official holds the board up for injury time, I always put my stopwatch on. It was 4 minutes added on time on Saturday, and you could actually argue that there should have been more because all the subbies were made, I think, in the regulation time. There might have been one in injury times, but even if there was one in injury time, you're still adding there on. There was a goal scored. There was obviously subs, as I said, and there was probably an injury or two, I think, if I think back. Finn Robertson certainly had physio treatment. So you could argue that there should have been more than 4 minutes on the outset. Then Frankie Kent gets his second yellow card, and it takes at least a minute for Dundee to restart the game with the free kick. The referee blows early for full time. Now it was like 4 seconds early or whatever, but you know what, right? When we played Celtic at Parkhead, I was one of the few who was like kind of like okay with the times because Kieran Tierney went down before the board went up. He got back up and went off a minute after the board had went up. So it was like over the 89th, 90th, 91st minute, Kieran Tierney was down. I think there was 5 minutes added. Celtic scored in the 6th minute. But there was another minute added on for Kieran Tierney being injured. I've got no problem with that because they're adding on what was missed, if you get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And it's a different referee in that day. And it's a different game and whatever. But all anybody's asking for is consistency. Why did... It's nothing to do with it being Celtic, but why does Celtic get that courtesy on that day, but fast forward 8 weeks, and we're playing against Hearts? Now, I'm not saying that Dundee would have scored, but they've got another minute to do something about it. Why is he not adding that time on? It's just total inconsistency, and it's just another reason on every single reason I have for something to be done about timings. And I know that we were speaking the other day, or the other podcast, about the rules that are going to be changing to help speed up games of football, but they're not going to get enforced because the referees didn't even enforce half the rules already.
I did see that. A slight tangent. I was talking about referees still, but I did notice that the referee association, I don't know if it was FIFA or the FA or what, but they are having a meeting at the end of the season with regards to all the referees, discussing about how referees have basically lost sight of the game and they're using VAR where it shouldn't be getting used, and they're relying on VAR too much, essentially. So I think there is going to be changes coming with regards to VAR. I obviously don't know about time wasting, added on time, etc. But I do know that is going to be a thing of discussion that refs will be talking about in the close season.
I think that change is certainly going to come because there's been a lot more emphasis and a lot more spotlight put on the issue, because obviously you've got these rules coming in with the throw-ins, the substitutions and stuff that's going to take effect in the World Cup and then afterwards. And I was also watching a short video from the Overlaps podcast, the one that Gary Neville and so on do. They were, now obviously I didn't see the whole discussion, so I'm not able to tell you exactly what the outcome of the conversation was, but they were, I think, touching on the Spurs against Atletico Madrid game. I think it was something to do with a goalie going down injured. Now I didn't see the match, so I don't know. I'm just kind of putting two and two together and might be getting 5, but I think from what they were saying that the goalie was going down injured, then obviously because it's the goalie, there's nothing really that the ref can do in terms of sending the boy off, like, and not red carding him, but putting him off for treatment. He has to stay on, and that's obviously a common tactic used for time wasting. The goalies go down injured with cramp. I mean, I don't care what anybody says, a professional athlete shouldn't be getting cramp in 90 minutes of football, and never mind a fucking goalie.
Yeah, very true.
They were kind of discussing what should be done about that, like what rule can change. And you know what, right? I like that the fact that it's getting highlighted and the fact that it's getting spoken about, and they're saying like, well, what can you do then? Because then you'll know that because if it's a genuine injury, you'll be fine with it. But if it's not a genuine injury, you put him off for 30 seconds, or you would only do it in the second half. In the first half, it's okay, and blah blah. And I'm like, you're making this far more complicated than it needs to be. I understand that I'm beating it, but I'm banging a drum here that I've done all season, and a lot of people disagree with me on this because they say that you'll be at the football for hours and hours on end. But you didn't need to bring in any of these fancy rules if you just stop the clock. The goalie can go down with cramp 8 times in the game if he wants to, because every single time he goes down, he's getting the advantage.
True.
So I didn't understand why we didn't just solve the problem with the thing that solves it, rather than like, oh well, the goalie's down, so what we'll do is an automatic 2 minutes gets added onto the fourth official's board at the 90th minute. Like, nah. Well, it doesn't need to be as complicated as that. But nah, I think eventually something will happen, because there's clearly something that they're trying to sort. And a lot of people, you might be included in this chat, want them to stop tinkering and stuff with the rules. I've got no problem with them constantly trying to change rules if it's going to help solve problems.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
You get people who are like, oh, football back in the day is massively different to but now, and yeah, that's fine, but football 20 years ago was different to football 30 years before that.
Mm-hmm.
So football's constantly evolving. It's just that we all think nostalgically that football 20 years ago was better, and in certain ways it probably was, but I'll come back again. I seen yesterday the League Cup final in England was the boy Cherky was doing keepy-ups when they were 2-0 up, and his manager was shaking his head and people were calling disrespectful and stuff. See, 20 years ago, if Ronaldinho did that, we'd have a Joga Benito advert about him doing it. and we'd have him doing keepy-ups and kicking the bar off the crossbar and everything. Like, it was idolised, Ronaldinho doing all that sort of stuff. But nowadays it's like, oh, it's disrespectful. Like, come on.
Yeah, there's no personality in football nowadays.
No, nothing. There's no Mavericks, there's no personality, there's no... Like, that's how I love the boy Yagan so much. And I mean, Yagan's probably not had his best of games in the past few weeks, but he's raw, and he'll get the ball and he'll run at people and he'll beat men, and he's one of the best one-on-one players I've ever seen in my life. Like, he's very, very good one-on-one against a full-back or a centre-half, and there's not many players like him now. He's not, you know what, he doesn't even do any skill, he just chops. But that seems to be a dying breed in football. So it's very, very refreshing when you see it. But we'll move on now before we start going off on a massive tangent, and we'll cover this week's score predictions. Now, I haven't actually got the score predictions in front of me, but from what I could remember, Jack, we didn't do very well.
I'm not surprised.
I think I said it was going to be 2-0 Hearts, and you said 1-1. So I picked up a point for the correct outcome, and you didn't obviously get anything. For the United Celtic game, I went 3-1 Celtic, I think. You also predicted a Celtic win.
Yeah, I think I went 2-0.
Yeah, and it was obviously 2-0 United, so we both got 0 points. So I'm now on 23 points and you're on 22. So that'll cover that. Obviously, as we're speaking about this and everything will be on screen if you're listening on YouTube. So you'll know as we are talking about us not knowing. Yeah, that's the score prediction transfer at the moment. We'll cover the rest of the SPFL Premiership card just now. So Falkirk 1, St Mirren 2, Hearts 1, Dundee 0, Kilmarnock 2, Livingston 0, Motherwell 0, Hibernian 0, Rangers 4, Aberdeen 1, and on Sunday, Jack will be delighted to hear Dundee United 2, Celtic 0. So, Jack, is there any more transfer news coming out of Tannadice? I know that, just to touch on Dundee briefly before I get you in, the reports in the paper at the end of last week were that David Longwell is sitting down with a lot of Dundee's out of contract players, so hopefully some of them will be sorted soon. Billy Cometio does have a club option for an extra year, so I'd imagine that Dundee will probably take that up, if anything, just so that they get money for a sale. And there's been interest from down south in John McCracken. But other than that, no incoming transfer news that I could see. I did see that United were interested in a full-back. I don't know if you maybe touched on that last week.
I did see we were interested in fullback. We've been actually linked with a few fullbacks. There was an Australian boy we were looking at. I did think I did mention this last week. I can't remember his name. It might be Rollins, potentially. He's a young player that was at Utrecht a few years ago, and he was tipped for big things. I did see on some of the forums that we were linked with him. Outside of that, I don't really know much. There was a boy down south called Evan Weir we were rumoured to be interested in. He's at Walsall. He was a fullback as well, but I think that rumour's went quiet, and I don't know if that's going to happen anymore, or if it was even on the table to begin with. But yeah, no transfer news for now. I think we're probably going to be in talks with a few of our players to keep them on for next season, or let them know their future plans.
Who would you like to see stay on?
I mean, we're talking loan players, because ultimately that's who we've got a chance of keeping. I would love to keep Fata. That's not going to happen, unfortunately, I don't think. I think Crestes has shown enough that in a two-at-the-back system, I think we can play him and he'd be a useful signing. I think he's probably our best defender at the moment. So I'd keep him. Dolchek, he can go. He's barely been in the team. Stevenson, I'd obviously love to keep, but he's not going to be coming back. I think Waters, he can go. I'm not interested in him, keeping him. So yeah, as for out of contract, I'm not actually sure who's out of contract or who we've got club options on, so I can't really comment on that. But yeah, for the loans, that's who I'd keep.
Fair dues. We'll get you back in straight away. So obviously this weekend is the international break, which we'll touch on later. But there's going to be no podcast next week, so we will speak about the games in a fortnight. Kind of have a quick look towards them. United at Ibrox, as you said, they've picked up quite a few points from the Old Firm this season. Only one defeat, I think, which was at Celtic Park. You drew there last time. What do you think this time round?
Obviously, it's a tough game. Rangers seem to be capable of getting good results against big teams and struggling a bit against the weird teams. And I think in the last few weeks they've managed to beat St Mirren 1-0, but they drew with Livingston. They drew with Livy 2-2, so they are capable of dropping points. We've obviously, as you just mentioned, already got a draw from them at Ibrox earlier in the season. It's going to be a hard game, always is against the Old Firm. Rangers have only lost twice in the league this season, somehow. It feels like they've lost a lot more than that, but I think it was mostly draws under Russell Martin. I think the Celtic game's going to give us confidence. We probably would have preferred to have played straight away next week, but obviously the internationals came up, so it does give the players to get rested and give the chance to get rested, work on tactics. Obviously the same works for Rangers as well. I'm sure they'll have a few more players away internationally than us. Yeah, tough game. As I mentioned earlier on, we need to win it if we want to get top six, so the pressure's not so much on. I think it's really a free hit. I don't think we're expected top six, so it's one where we have a chance, and as long as we do what we did against Celtic and are physical and match the intensity, we've definitely got a chance of getting something out of it.
It sounds mental that you say that Rangers have only lost 2 games, and I'm thinking, if they've only lost 2 games, it's only Hearts that have beat them this season, and that's wild when you think about it, because even obviously at the start of the season they were absolutely shite.
Yeah, they were terrible. But somehow, like you say, it is incredible. Russell Martin must have drawn the majority of his games for us to think that he was doing a terrible job. Obviously, he's expecting to win every game with Rangers, but I think they only lost 1 game under him, which is
must have been
crazy.
The Hearts game at Ibrox.
Yeah,
the Hearts beat them 2-0 at Ibrox, and then obviously Danny Rowe was there when they lost at Tynecastle. That's a mental start, that.
Yeah, I know. They've drew something like 12 games or something.
As for Dundee, Jack, we play Celtic. Now, I would imagine that you'd want Dundee to win any game of football they play, but I reckon that there might be something in you that would be quite proud of the fact that the Dundee teams had beat them 4 times in the city.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a cool start. I'd like Celtic to win for the fact that, one, it means Dundee don't win, and two, it will be good for the title race. But yeah, that I think being able to say that Celtic didn't win a single game in the city of Dundee is a pretty cool fact, like, and that'd be one for like the pub quizzes in a few years' time.
Definitely, and Dundee have been very good against Celtic this season. Well, by their usual standards, I suppose. Obviously, they beat them at Dens 2-0 at the beginning of the season. They lost narrowly at Parkhead in the Cup. They then in the league, and in the Cup they were seconds away from putting them out, and obviously they then lost it within extra time. But if it was a league game, it would have finished 1-1. So there's another one. So obviously we've now got them back at Dens, and it promises to be a good day, that, because I would imagine that it's FA Cup weekend in England, so Sky Sports are at a bit of a loose end, and we've got the Super Sunday slot. So if you've got a Now TV pass or something, Jack, get yourself on Sky that day. You'll get Livingston versus Hearts and then Dundee versus Celtic in the same afternoon.
I can assure you, mate, I'll not be watching it.
You need to do your homework for this.
That's what the highlight reels are for.
Oh, for God's sake. It's a dead tricky one, because Celtic are a better team than Dundee, and if Celtic play to their potential, they will beat Dundee. There's no question about that. And another thing is that I'm now 30. I turned 30 earlier this year. I was 29 last year when Dundee beat Celtic, and I think it was very well advertised at the time that was the first time we'd ever seen Dundee beat Celtic. So it's not like it comes around very often for myself. So I'm not wanting to sit here and be overly confident that Dundee are going to win, which you'll probably see in my score predictions, which will go on now. Now, I done them work today, Jack, and to be honest with you, I can't remember what they are. But I'll give you a text tomorrow with them, and obviously they'll be on screen at some point. But United versus Rangers, Jack, what are you going to go for?
I'm going to say that we're going to win.
Okay.
I'm going to go 1-0 United to put the pressure on Falkirk, and then we'll bottle it against Livy.
Okay, and what about the Super Sunday game at Dens Park, Dundee against Celtic?
I think Celtic will edge it 2-1.
Okay, so I think I've went for 3-1 Celtic, maybe, and I've definitely went for a Rangers win, but I can't remember what the scoreline was. So we're obviously different in that, because you went for the United win, which is bold. I do like that. So we'll see what happens with that. But we'll move on now to the upcoming Scotland games. Obviously at Hampden on Saturday evening against Japan, which Jack will be watching in his living room because it's on council telly, 5 o'clock on Saturday. They then travel to Liverpool on Tuesday to face the Ivory Coast at Everton's Hill Dickinson Stadium. I think I've got that right. We'll have a quick run through the squads for both Japan and the Ivory Coast, which, as you could imagine, is filling me with fear because I absolutely butcher these names. But we'll go for Japan first. They have went for 3 goalkeepers: Tomoki Hayakawa of Kashima Antlers, Kaisuke Osako of Sanfrecce Hiroshima, and Zion Suzuki of Parma. They have went for the defenders of Shogo Taniguchi of STVV of Belgium, Toyoshi Wanatabe of Feyenoord, Takiro Tomiyasu of Ajax, Tomoya Ando St. Pauli, Hiroki Ito of Bayern Munich, Ayumi Seko of Le Havre. Jack, you could correct me on that.
Le Havre.
Le Havre. Yukinari Sugawara of Werder Bremen and Yunosuke Suzuki of FC Copenhagen. The midfielders and strikers are as follows: Junya Ito of Genk, Daishi Kamada Crystal Palace, Kayuri Mitoma Brighton, Koki Ogawa of Nijmegen. Is that right, Jack? They're from Holland, Nijmegen?
Nijmegen. So
Daisen Maeda of Celtic, Ritsu Doan Eintracht Frankfurt, Ayase Iida Feyenoord, Ayo Tanaka of Leeds, Shuto Machinio of Borussia Mönchengladbach, Kaito Nakamura of Reims in France, Kaishu Sano of Mainz, Yutu Suzuki of Freiburg, Joel Majita of St. Pauli, and that Nijmegen's back again, Jack, Kodai Sano, Kento Shogai of Wolfsburg, Kaisuke Goto of STVV, and Ryunsuke Sato of FC Tokyo. Now, if you think that's bad, wait for the Ivory Coast. Now, I've got their squad here, which was put on their Instagram, and I'm absolutely positive that the second names are first. Their surnames are first. So I'm just going to read their surnames. Goalkeepers: Fofana, Kone and Lafont. Defenders: Agabado, Akpa, Diamonde, Due, Conan, Kosanu, De Indika and Singo. Midfielders: Fofana, Guingon, Kese, Ulai, Sangare and Sere. And their attacking players are Indigra, Diallo, Amad Diallo of Man United, Yan Diamande, Godu, Evan Gisond, Toure, Traore and Wahi. Now, I did see something there that Nicolas Pepe was back in their squad. Now, that one of them might be Nicolas Pepe, but it doesn't suggest to me that one of them is. So, yeah, that's the two squads for the Japanese national team and the Ivory Coast national team, Jack. Obviously, the first game is at Hampden against Japan, second game down in Liverpool. What's your thoughts going into those? Obviously, it's not really about the results. It's a bit more about getting the squad ready for the upcoming World Cup. One thing that hopefully they'll learn from the Euros the last Euros in Germany was the massive momentum when they went into the camp where they played Spain and Seville, but they'd already played England in the previous camp in a friendly and got a bit of a doing. They went to Spain and gave a really good account of themselves. Some may say that they were robbed when McTominay's free kick was disallowed. They then played a game against France in a friendly and got hammered. And after that, it was all downhill, and they went into the Euros with some key injuries and with no form whatsoever. And with so much momentum built up from the start of the campaign to qualify, was just totally lost. And I think hopefully they'll learn from it this time. Now, they've got winnable games in their 4 friendlies between now and the World Cup. But what's your thoughts on these two? Because they're two competitive teams they're playing against.
Yeah, actually very difficult games, I feel like. Obviously a bit more realistically winnable than like against Spain or France or whatever. But they are very good footballing countries. Japan are typically very disciplined in all sports. Football is no exception. They'll be hard to play against. I feel like Japanese teams are quite slow to like their build-up's quite slow, and I think that could suit Scotland probably a wee bit. As for Ivory Coast, I didn't actually know they had such a good team. I just looked, and Nicolas Pepe is in the squad. He got called up as a replacement for Yan Diomande, so he is going to be playing for Ivory Coast. So yeah, it's a very
that'll be why he's not on my name. That the names list that I completely butchered. Sorry, Ivory Coast in Japan.
Yeah, but yeah, they've got a very good technical team, and that'll be a much tougher task, and a game where will probably benefit from it more than the Japan game when it comes to the World Cup, because obviously we're against Morocco, coming up against Brazil, who are obviously very good technical players. I feel like Haiti are no mugs either with regards to their technical abilities. Okay, they don't have the quality of players as they do, but I don't think they're rubbish on the ball, so to speak. So I think the Ivory Coast game is definitely one where we can benefit from playing against more technically developed players than the Japan one. But Japan's also going to be a very, very good game for us to learn stuff from. And yeah, if we can get the results against them, great. I think it's more about the squad building and tactics than anything. But yeah, it is a tough couple of fixtures for us.
I noticed that you were on about it'll benefit us because we're obviously playing Morocco and they're obviously another African team. And I think that's what Steve Clarke was really wanting. He was wanting to play against a team from the same confederation as group opponents. So obviously we're not playing an Asian team who Japan are playing, but they're a quality team who they've been at every World Cup that I could remember. So they're a good test for us. We're then going to play Ivory Coast, like you say, who are in the same confederation as Morocco, so that's that one. But then you move on to the June friendlies in the lead up to the World Cup. We're playing, I could never say it's Curacao or Curacao, obviously a former Dutch colony in the Caribbean, but they're same confederation, another Caribbean island along with Haiti, so that's that covered. And then I think they were due to play against Peru in the last one, which was going to be at the New York Red Bull Stadium in New Jersey, but Peru got a better offer. I think they played Spain or something like that, and I think it's either California or Mexico, so they've pulled out of that. And I think we're actually going to be playing against Venezuela, still at New Jersey at the New York Red Bull Stadium, so that'll be, it's not been confirmed yet, I don't think. I was googling it as you were speaking, but that'll be the South American team covered to mirror Brazil. Obviously you're not getting very many better South American teams than Brazil, but I suppose Venezuela will be of the same confederation, as they say. So yeah, interesting stuff leading up to the World Cup. As I said earlier, I touched on it, no podcast next week. I'm down in Liverpool and just not going to have enough time, so the lead up to the Celtic game for Dundee, the Rangers game for United are covered. We'll be back in a couple of weeks for the reaction to both those games, and look forward to, well, I assume United are playing Livingston, because Jack, you'd mentioned that. Dundee are at Kilmarnock in what will probably be a big game, so we'll have those to look forward to in a couple of weeks and we'll rejoin. Going forward, we'll be here every week after next week for the remainder of the season. We'll take a quick break and then we'll have a big build-up episode to the World Cup, and we're going to have episodes after every Scotland game of the World Cup, so hopefully that's a few, but a minimum of 3 from myself. Maybe Jack will hopefully be involved. We'll have a couple of other people involved hopefully as well, who will be in America with me for the World Cup. We'll be at the Morocco game and the Brazil game in Boston and Miami, so keep your calendars marked for those episodes coming out. We'll obviously do plenty of reminding as usual, but just before we finish, Jack, we'll move on to the Futbology Challenge. Now Martin's time limit has run out to tell me if he has any extra games, so the game that he's going for has now been locked in. The 25-point target that we've set you, Jack, is going to have to wait another week. Obviously you couldn't have got there this week, but you could have edged closer. We've got another forfeit for you, mate.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, nobody's surprised.
I mean, it's the story of your season, isn't it?
It is, really.
Next season, hopefully, we've got a few more games that align better when we record, but we'll take it from there. I had 2 games today. One of them was the same game Martin was at, but he got that and I didn't. So my game is from Tuesday, March 23rd, 2010. It was a game between Dundee and Queen of the South at Dens. A crowd of 4,508 were there for Gordon Chisholm's first game as Dundee manager, ironically against his former club. It was 1-1. The Dundee team was Tony Bullock, Eric Payton, Craig McEwen, Bob Malcolm, Eddie Malone, Andrew Shinnie, Brian Kerr, Maros Klimpel, Gary Harkins, Lee Griffiths and Colin McMenamin. And on the bench, Derek Suter, Sean Higgins, Ben Hutchinson, Richie Hart and Colin Cameron. As for Queen of the South, who were temporarily managed by Kenny Brannigan, they went with David Hutton, David Lilly, Mark McCausland, Bob Harris, Craig Reid, Stephen McKenna, Jamie Adams, Paul Burns, Rocco Quinn, Willie McLaren and Derek Holmes. And on the bench, Scott Fox, Neil Scally, Joe Hamill, Sean O'Connor and David Weatherston. The scorers were Griffiths with a penalty on 16 minutes, Bob Harris on 58 minutes and Mark McCausland was sent off on 16, which obviously led to the penalty. The overwhelming memories of that game for me, Jack, was it was Gordon Chisholm's first game in charge of Dundee. He'd been rumoured to be taking charge of Dundee a few times before then, and that was the time he'd taken over. He didn't last very long because he was punted in about the October, and this was the March when we went into administration. So, yeah, a 1-1 draw that night, which was a bit of a recurring theme at that stage of that season when Dundee totally imploded and allowed Inverness to win the league. So that's moved me a point further away from Martin at the top of the league, as you could see on screen, because Martin had a game from this time last year. So Sunday, 23rd of March 2025, Scotland 0, Greece 3 at Hampden Park. There was a second leg of a Nations League relegation / promotion playoff. Steve Clarke was the manager for Scotland and the starting 11 was as follows: Craig Gordon, Anthony Ralston, John Suter, Grant Hanley, Andy Robertson, Billy Gilmore, Kenny McLean, Ryan Christie, Scott McTominay, John McGinn and Shea Adams. And the subs were Kelly, Slicker, Tierney, Conway, Hendry, Wilson, McKenna, Nisbet, Hurst, Ferguson, Miller and Johnston. And Jack's going to get a bra laugh at me because never we go for the Greece team. Solakis, Vaglanidis, Mavropanos, Koulourakis, Giannalis, Zafrelis, Mozanikis, Karestas, Konstantilias, Solis and Pavlidis. And I am not doing the subs. The scorers were, for Greece, Konstantilias on 20, Karestas on 42 and Solis on 46. I'm not going to do too much reflecting back on that game on Martin's behalf because it was an absolute car crash of a night. After playing so well over in Athens, getting a 1-0 win, to come back to Hampden full of optimism, and for that to happen was very Scotland, really, wasn't it, Jack? Very Scotland in general.
Very much so. I think people expected it to not expect
probably.
it. I think because people were so up for it, and then we just come tumbling down. It's it's Scotland, as you say.
Yeah, so that moves me another point clear of Martin at the top of the league. That's now 2 points in it. I've obviously got the game on the games and the table on screen as we've been speaking about that, so take a look at that. Just before we go, Jack, there was an article released by the Tilly today and the Courier saying that Transport Scotland Chiefs want to see more detail and find out more information on Dundee's plans for the Kingsway exit slip road into the proposed new stadium at Camperdown. And all I've got to say on that is we're going round and round and round and round in circles. Is there any adults working on this project?
Probably not.
Doesn't seem to be. But before I really get myself angry about that, we're going to finish on that. Thanks very much for everyone for listening, and as I say, we will see you all in 2 weeks' time. Cheers.